When I first started my journey here in studying Revelation, really looking seriously at the book of Revelation and wanting to extract my understanding of the end times primarily from that book and then incorporate all the other end time passages and the allusions that Revelation was making that are their ideas and pictures and their little memory joggers that help you to think about other things that happened in the Old Testament, or they remind you of other passages. Allusions are hugely important to understanding and interpreting Revelation. I just can't emphasize that enough. There are over 500 direct references and allusions to both Old and New Testament scriptures. They have to be incorporated into your interpretation of Revelation. They absolutely have to be. And if you ignore them, then your interpretation, your understanding what the book of Revelation is actually telling you is going to be extremely shallow. It's just going to be very one-dimensional. You'll be able to say what the book says, but you're not going to be able to know what it means. So back before the Revelation 12 sign was a thing, so we're talking maybe 2015 or 2016, something like that, I had a dream. And in my dream, I was standing with my husband. We were in a labor and delivery room, and there was a woman who was in agony to be delivered. And I could not see the woman because there was this huge man in front of her, and in my mind I'm thinking, who is this guy? He's huge. He's just like a big football player, all dressed in black. As I'm asking this question to myself in my dream, I get the idea that, oh, he's the pediatrician. And I'm thinking, well, that's odd. Okay, well, whatever. Obstetricians usually deliver the baby, but the pediatrician is the one who takes care of the baby after delivery. So anyway, I was made aware that this was the pediatrician. This was the one who's going to take care of the baby. So the woman was in labor, and I couldn't tell how far along she was in her labor. I couldn't tell. And I actually have had the privilege of delivering several of my grandchildren. And so, I kind of am aware of how, labor starts and progresses and so on. And I wanted to know where in the process this woman was. So in my dream, I heard a voice say to me, so would you like to see what's going on with this woman? I'm like, yeah. So the voice said, well, just come over here and stand to the side and you'll be able to tell where you're at as far as the labor goes. And so I was there. I saw the woman. I saw her deliver the baby. And then I saw this man, this huge person, who I was informed was the pediatrician, grab that baby and run out of the room. So in my mind, this was how the Lord spoke to my heart, basically saying, Brenda, I'm going to show you how this labor is going to be progressing. So I was like, well, cool. If this is how I can understand the travail of the woman of Revelation 12 and understand anything about the Revelation 12 sign or the second sign, the sign of the dragon, that would be awesome. So as these years have progressed, and I've been making videos since 2017 or 2018, I've been really studying the book of Revelation for, the last 7 years or so. One of the things that I realized early on was if you start Revelation with Revelation chapter 12 with the great sign that appeared in heaven. It's a great sign, and it was this once in 7,000 year, people say. It's an astronomical alignment that's only happened on very, very few occasions and may have only happened once or twice in thousands of years, but it happened at the tail end of the Feast of Trumpets in 2017. And this was that astronomical alignment of a woman clothed with the sun. That's Virgo. Remember, the sun, moon, and stars are for signs and for seasons, for days and years. The Mazzaroth, the constellations, the signs of the zodiac, if you were, they are God's giant clock, and they tell us where we're at. Okay, they're a clock, and they're meant for signs, first of all, appointed times, seasons, and then days and years. They're meant to help us know where we're at in God's prophetic and his time. Okay, that helps us to understand where we're at. So a lot of people, including myself, were kind of hoping for a rapture in 2017, because what we were doing is we were taking the great sign and then the second sign, the sign of the dragon, and we were mushing them together and trying to make them be one sign, where, at the time of this astronomical alignment, that would be when the child is caught up to God and to his throne. So we were pretty naive, and really we were just getting our feet wet in terms of Bible interpretation, and really in terms of like opening up the book and really understanding about the end times. And Daniel told us that knowledge would increase. People would run to and fro throughout the scriptures, not to and fro throughout the world, but to and fro throughout the scriptures, and be able to have insight into what's going on. So the Revelation 12 sign that appeared in September of 2017 tells us that we are in the book of Revelation. The things that we're going to see happening in the end times have started with the great sign. So I'm not saying we're in the wrath of God or we're in the tribulation. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I'm not even using that terminology. I'm just taking what's in the book of Revelation and trying to understand what it means. So all that sign did was give us an indication that, hey, you're in the book now. You're in Revelation chapter 12, verse 1 with the great sign. And what this means is that the next sign, the second sign, the sign of the dragon, which is the one where we see the child raptured, is the sign that's going to be, a part of our rapture. Okay, and there are a lot of things that go with that sign. Satan taking his tail and casting a third of the stars, I'm assuming his angels, to the earth, and there's the travail of the woman, and so on. So you can read it in Revelation chapter 12, verses about 3 through 6. Okay, that's the second sign. So what I want to talk about now is labor pains, okay, in the Bible, and labor pains in Israel. Okay, because this is what we're seeing happening right now. We're getting a picture, a window into the end times and what is happening. When October 7th happened last year, on the 8th day of Tabernacles, I went, you know what? We are really close. We are so close. And that was the beginning of the labor pains in Israel. So how do labor pains work? Well, they start out kind of slow. I mean, you're going to have a pain, and it's gonna catch you, you're gonna go, yeah, that's pretty bad, and then there'll be a space of time where there's nothing, and then there'll be another one, and gradually the pains get harder and harder and more difficult to cope with, and the frequency increases until they are just one wave of pain on another, and then finally you can push and have a baby. That's how labor works. So this is the imagery that is being used in Revelation chapter 12 when it comes to the events surrounding the birth and rapture, a catching away of the male child. Okay, there is labor that's involved. Now, the woman is symbolized by Virgo in the starry heavens. The woman is also the remnant of Israel who is going to flee into the wilderness on earth. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the nation of Israel. Okay, we're looking at Israel being depicted both in the constellations, with regard to Virgo, who's the only woman on the 12 zodiac signs, the Mazzaroth, as the Jews would call it. And when you take it, the imagery, and you apply it to what's happening on earth, and by the way, the dragon is standing before the woman, and the woman is going to flee into the wilderness. All this stuff is happening on earth. The heaven part of the sign is that Satan is going to be taking his angels, which are currently residing in heaven, and he is, according to my understanding, going to divide up his group into thirds. He'll leave 2/3 in heaven because that's a front that he has to hold, and he'll bring 1/3 to the earth because this is the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the end. And over the course of the next few months, we're going to see this third of Satan's angels being cast to the earth, as well as, once we're gone, people who are still here are going to have to deal with and contend with every fallen angel arriving onto the surface of the earth, whether they're angels in heaven that are going to all be cast to the earth, or whether they're angels that are now being kept in the abyss, the bottomless pit, and going to be brought to the earth. Right? So this is the hour of darkness. This is when, it's going to look like Satan, the beast, and it's going to take over the earth. But let me go back. What does it mean for Israel to be in travail? What does it mean for the woman to be in travail? Revelation 12:2, she was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs, in agony of giving birth. Okay, I'm just going to go over the uses, the allusions that Revelation uses about travail in Scripture. And there are many of them. There are so many of them in the Old Testament. I'm just going to pull out a few of them here. Here's one, Jeremiah 13:20 and 21. Lift up your eyes and see those coming from the north. Where is the flock entrusted to you, the sheep that were your pride? What will you say when he sets over you close allies whom you yourself trained? The Lord is talking to Israel here. Jeremiah, God is speaking through the prophet Jeremiah to the nation of Israel. Will not pangs of anguish grip you as they do a woman in labor? Okay, Jeremiah 6:22 through 25. This is what the Lord says. Behold, an army is coming from the land of the north. A great nation is stirred up from the ends of the earth. They grasp the bow and spear. They are cruel and merciless. Their voice roars like the sea, and they ride upon horses, lined up like men in formation, against you, O daughter of Zion. We have heard the report. Our hands hang limp. Anguish has gripped us, pain like that of a woman in labor. Do not go out to the fields, do not walk on the road, for the enemy has a sword and terror is on every side. Please listen to what I'm saying here. Israel is going to go into travail, hard labor, before the child is born and caught up to God into his throne. Before our rapture takes place, Israel is going to be in labor. And prophetically speaking here, it's talking about a nation coming from the north. Okay, now we also know that there is going to be travail associated with the day of the Lord. Now remember, the day of the Lord is not the tribulation. The day of the Lord is going to come after the man of sin has been revealed. Okay, the abomination of desolation. But before the second coming of Christ, the day of the Lord is when the wrath of God is going to be poured out on the in the 7 bowls of wrath onto the beast and the beast kingdom. Okay, that is when the judgment of the fallen ones is going to take place, and anyone who has allied themselves or aligned themselves with the beast and the beast kingdom. So this is what Isaiah 13:6-8 says. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. Therefore all hands will fall limp, and every man's heart will melt. Terror and pain and anguish will seize them. They will writhe like a woman in labor. They will look at one another, their faces flushed with fear. And I believe this is the passage that Paul is referring to in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 2 and 3. For you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord, okay, remember the day of the Lord is not the tribulation. The day of the Lord will come after the revelation of the man of sin, but before the second coming of Christ. The day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them like labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Okay, labor pains have to do with destruction, have to do with, it's speaking symbolically of massive pain, distress, travail, invasions, wars, okay, annihilation. That's what travail is. That is the picture that God uses, the symbol that God uses when he's talking about these things. Now, Jesus talked about how the disciples would have travail during the time that he was crucified and those 3 days while he was in the grave. And I'm just going through examples here of how labor pains with a woman are used in various different scenarios, okay? And then in the end, I'm going to sort of pull it all together and help you to understand that what we're seeing right now in Israel has been prophesied. It's prophesied that this would happen, that labor pains would come on Israel until the male child is born. All right, so the disciples were in travail while Christ was on the cross. And this is what Jesus said, John 16, verses 20 and 22. Truly, truly, I say to you, you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned to joy. When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born in the world. So also, you will have sorrow now, okay, like the woman in travail, and certainly the disciples were extremely sorrowful and confused and perplexed when Jesus was handed over to be crucified, and then those 3 days that he was in the grave. He says, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. So Jesus' resurrection would be like the child being born. That's the comparison here. The disciples would be sad, they would be dejected, they would be like extremely sorrowful, and then when Jesus rose from the dead, it would be like the birth of a child, okay, the pain forgotten. Jesus himself compared his agony on the cross to travail. This is in Isaiah 53, verses 10 and 11. This was a prophecy of Jesus. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. That is, the Lord has put Jesus to grief. And when thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed or his offspring. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see the travail of his soul, and he shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. This is what it says. He will see the travail of his soul and be satisfied. Why? Because he shall see his seed. He will see his offspring. Now, there is a passage in Isaiah 66 that people will often email me, and they'll say, well, Brenda, what about this? Okay, what about this passage where it says, before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came on her, she delivered a son. Isn't that like what Revelation 12 is talking about? That, you know, that she won't go into labor, that there won't be any pain? Okay, look. This passage in Isaiah 66 is about the nation of Israel before the millennium. When Christ delivers the nation of Israel, it will be, or it will seem like, early, like an early delivery, like before she even really got going in pain, all of a sudden there was the baby. And that's how it's going to be. Isaiah 66 verses 7 through 16. A lot of people will also quote this passage like, shall a land be born in a day? Shall a nation be brought forth in one moment? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she brought forth her children. And a lot of people will say, well, that's when Israel became a nation in a day in 1948. No, this passage is not talking about that. This passage is talking about when Jesus comes to rescue Israel just prior to his millennial reign. Verse 10, rejoice with Jerusalem, be glad for her, all you who love her, rejoice with her and joy. Down to verse 12, for thus says the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the nations like an overflowing stream, and you shall nurse, you shall be carried on her hip and bounced on her knees. Down to verse 15, for behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger and fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, and by his sword with all flesh, and those slain by the Lord shall be many. So before Israel even has to stand up against whatever the enemy is, and at this point in time, this is like at the end of the 42-month reign of the beast, at the end of the 1,260 days that the woman is in the wilderness, the Lord is going to come and he is going to enter into judgment. So Israel will not even go into labor. This remnant will not be in labor. Okay, so what does this have to do with us right now? Well, this is one of the things that I've been saying from the very, very beginning, basically, of my channel. And that is, there is no rapture without Israel being involved in a terrible, terrible war. Okay, and this is going to come like labor pains. Okay, the male child is not raptured until the woman goes into travail, until she's in agony to be delivered. That's what the second sign of Revelation 12 is talking about. The travail of the woman is an allusion back to Old Testament passages that talk about war and invasion and calamity. And some of them even say from the north. Okay, and we know that eventually there'll be an alignment of nations that we read about in Ezekiel 38. Okay, and God will actually put an end to that particular part of this war. Okay, the Gog-Magog war is actually going to, I think, start things off. God is going to put the hook in the jaw of Gog and bring him down to the mountains of Israel. And that's when things are going to get really, really, really bad for the nation of Israel. And like every woman who's ever been in labor, you're all alone and nobody can do this for you. Okay, especially back in the day before they had any kind of medical intervention for women who are having babies, and it was a difficult time. There was no painkillers, there were no cesarean sections. Okay, it was you delivering a baby, okay, all alone. So this is the case that I see that's coming for Israel. They will be all alone. Okay, the United States will not be helping, and the labor will be just like human labor, where something bad happens and then there's a break. Okay, just like what we've been seeing. Okay, October 7th happened, and then there's a break. And then in April, Iranians, lob missiles. And then there's a break. And this is just going to intensify, and there'll be, probably a couple more of these up through probably October or so. And then right around October, November, that's when the big stuff will happen. That's my thinking. That's how I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it for this year, 2024. That as we see this labor in Israel intensify, Okay, eventually the baby will be born. Eventually the baby will be born, and the baby, this male child, will be caught up to God and to his throne, and then we see him in the throne room of heaven, represented by the 24 elders, and there's obviously more than 24 who are going to be taken. I pray it's a huge, huge group. And this is the group of kings and priests. We've been made into a kingdom of priests. That's what Revelation chapter 1 says, verses 5 and 6. We've been made into a kingdom of priests, and then right away we'll begin our priestly duties of intercession for the people still on earth. And that's what we read about in Revelation chapter 5. All right, so it's really important that we take the book of Revelation seriously, and we find the allusions and we take them as part of the story. Okay, the allusion of a woman in travail is a picture of war and calamity. And then there's the birth of a male child. This is her firstborn. Okay, and so now when we see this firstborn son, the one who's going to rule, it's the firstborn that rules, remember. This firstborn son, there are allusions back to the Old Testament about things related to the firstborn son, including that there's going to be 7 days between the birth of the son and when he is given or presented to God, which is an 8th day thing. Okay? All right. So these, we're actually given times. We're given day counts. Okay? That between the time when believers are transformed into their immortal bodies and the time when they're given to God, caught up to God and to his throne, there's 8 days. All right, so it's really important that we actually search out these Old Testament, and there's New Testament ones too, allusions, and incorporate what we learn into the story of Revelation. All right, so leave a comment in the comment section, and we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.